show as well with his new manager, the incomparable Theodore Arlong, former manager of Doom, now of Hacksaw Butchery, I should say. And he puts together a really decent interview, and you think this guy has a chance to shine at WCW, and he actually does. Debuts as a heel who's a little fruity, acts like Little Richard. Excuse me. Don't know if he's kumse kumsai, he's gay or he's straight or whatever, but he has this presence about him that comes off as a little fruity. But when he's in the ring, he'll give a left hook, and apparently he's now debuting in a feud against PN Hughes. Interesting. The Rat Bastard, PN Hughes. Also, this is going to go to my next match, which actually occurred prior to the Pillman and Wyndham match, but I wanted to save this one right now because it kind of tied in with the whole debut thing in WCW at the time with some of these guys. It was the character of Oz, who is Kevin Nash, and he debuts as this quirky Wizard of Oz character who is managed by the Grand Wizard. WCW had this huge setup of the Oz with this background music and the background setting that looked like Wizard, that looked like Oz. Just weird. Kevin Nash looks like Santa Claus dressed in green garnish and 50 to 60 pounds lighter, slimmer than Santa. Walks down the ring, 7 foot tall, has all this makeup that's ridiculous, not believable at all. It was weird and awkward. And he faces poor old Tim Parker, who is nothing more than an enhancement talent. Long story short, he beats Tim Parker with like 9 seconds. Spun him like a top, as Jim Ross said, with this awesome powerbomb that just twerked him around, which is, wow, awesome maneuver, but weird ass character. Just very, very weird character that actually jobbed more than he actually won in WCW to be a guy who's 7 foot tall and dude. Just, it went nowhere. It was just another bad Jim Hurt creation. I couldn't see Dusty putting that together. It had to be Jim Hurt. Maybe he went to Wizard of Oz museum back in 1991 and said, why not debut a heel character as a member of Wizard of Oz? Just ridiculous. More Jim Hurt nonsense later on. But following the Pillman and the Wyndham match, we have Elegante versus Sid Vicious in a stretcher match. Sid Vicious loses the match and eventually leaves WCW. And very rarely, did they really talk about him even being a horseman. It was like Sid just disappeared from being a horseman for like a week, for like a month or two before any of this really happened in his feud with Elegante. Apparently, and I remember this back then, Sid had put a lot of enhancement talents on stretchers to be carted off and would purposely want to injure his opponent, and Elegante took offense to it and said, alright, you want to injure somebody, why don't you try to injure me and put me on the stretcher. So they had a stretcher match. Sid loses the stretcher, but he's never put on the stretcher simply because Kevin Sullivan and One Man Gang come down and attack Elegante, put Elegante on the stretcher, beats him up to a pulp. And then Elegante manages to escape the wrath of Kevin Sullivan and One Man Gang and rises up and is just pissed off to the point where he literally power walks backstage to try to find them. None of that stuff is captured, but you see that's what's going on. Also, this is the point of during the pay-per-view where we're going to see Missy Hyatt's exploits. Missy Hyatt, for the last 3 months, dating all the way back to Wrestle War in February, wanted to become a reporter inside the men's locker room. So she tried to go into the heels locker room for like the second time in the last 3 months, and once again she comes across Stan the Lariat Hansen. And Stan the Lariat Hansen, as he did at Wrestle War, and I remember telling Stan this during FanFest several months ago. Don't you remember the time that Missy Hyatt came into the dressing room in SuperBrawl in St. Petersburg and you whipped her ass with your cowboy hat repeatedly and then pushed her out, and then Terrence Taylor, who was there pissed off that he had lost the match, did not want to interview with Missy, but you saw her while you were just getting out of the shower. You beat the hell out of her with the cowboy hat. Oh, it was priceless. He pretended not to know, but I doubt that. I think he knew. But that was really good laughter. Jim Ross and Dusty Rhodes were laughing their butts off, and even to this day, I still laugh at it. And by the way, that's on the master release. Not very much. Many things are, it seems, with some of the lesser stuff, but that did make it. Also, which occurred at the pay-per-view, had a special Danger Zone with Paulie Dangerously, in which he pretty much quits the WCW, and just basically says, "I'm through. I quit doing the show." And he was pissed off at the system at the time for a lot of the stuff that they were doing. And he dresses up in a cowboy hat and whatnot, and tries to act like Stan the Larry Hansen. And he even interviewed Stan Hansen earlier in the show, and he basically just quits WCW. It was a really, really good moment that gets under value, but that's not on the master release. But I just wanted to get that out. Good stuff. It's going to set up what Paulie does later in the year when he forms the Dangerous Alliance. Is basically what he's doing. He leaves the broadcasting booth and he returns back to managing for the first time in 2 years. In about a year since he managed the Undertaker / Mark Calaway. The next match is a prominent match known as, originally it was just a special grudge match between Ron Simmons and Butch Reed. But it turned into a Thunder Doom cage match, in which it was a regular cage, old school type cage. And Doom had broken up at Wrestle War. They were already going through some issues, and they broke up at Wrestle War, losing the tag title to the Fabulous Freebirds. This match in itself was very undervalued and underrated, but it was really good. Both Doom members coming out to the same classic Doom music. Butch Reed coming out in his Doom-like attire with the black shorts. Well, I should say original Doom attire with the black shorts and whatnot. Managed by Theodore Arlon, who had to be suspended in the manager's cage. Long story short, you had Ron Simmons wins the match via Teddy Long making a huge mistake by throwing his chain, like some sort of chain or something that he had, and tossed it to the cage, towards the cage, and it hit the mat. And Ron Simmons picked it up and just cold clocked Hacksaw Butch Reed and won the match. And thus his career took off, and Butch Reed's career really went down. He wasn't in WCW anymore. I think he might make one more appearance in WCW several years later, but it was really minuscule. We really didn't see Butch Reed that much anymore on a mainstream level. So that was just like Dan Spivey. This was kind of the end of the road for Butch Reed. Ron Simmons will go on to have a pretty good career, win the WCW Championship a year later, and be in a really undervalued feud with Lex Luger during late 1991 for the WCW title. Next, we have what I consider personally to be the best match on the card, and quite frankly,